Right. So while shopping in Ginza 6 in Japan, I was reading the news and found out that Trump was apparently invading Venezuela. The Americans completely curb stomped the Venezuelans in Caracas, and a single Delta Force team completely smoked 40 Cuban Special Forces operators guarding Maduro. Bro, they were not playing around. So America bagged Maduro like a McDonald's drive-thru takeout and announced that he's gonna be prosecuted in the state of New York. And this is a blatant act of invasion of one country in another country, obviously. And rightfully so, other countries in the world decided to condemn this action as a violation of international rules and Venezuelan sovereignty. But let's be real, nobody in the West gives a about Venezuela but their oil. And foreign ministers, diplomats, and world leaders come together to shame America for what they did. But what exactly is our foreign minister doing? Instead of jumping on the bandwagon and doing his job as the foreign minister, he decides to endorse changing how we vote our mayors and governors in this country. Man, what the are you doing? And for some apparent reason, our Minister of Justice decides to condemn Venezuela by saying, if I was there, I would not let this stand. Rose into some you're acting like I'm gonna let it happen type My God. Indonesia, what exactly are you doing here? See, this is the stuff that makes me stay away from Indonesian political news lately, is that it seems like our politicians can't seem to stick to their actual job description. Sugiono, you're supposed to be foreign affairs, not domestic affairs. What the hell are you doing? And yes, I know that the truth is this man is there in this position so that Prabowo can personally manage Indonesian foreign policy, like how Trump put Hegseth as the Secretary of Defense. But you actually have the option of not being a peon, sir. Remember, you always have the option to become a free thinker. And this is the thing about Indonesian politics that I really hate most about these days, is that it does not really reward free thinking. I had a conversation with a friend of mine from Total Politik, the co-founder, Ari Putra, a year ago about the nature of Indonesian politics. We discussed that characters like Anies struggle in politics because while he does serve the people, he ultimately answers to no one but himself. Meanwhile, characters like Raffi Ahmad are able to get so far because a guy like Sufmi Dasko likes him so much, and Raffi serves him, which is why Dasko rewards him with broker powers, as revealed by Sule this one time. And it's also like that in many student organizations that would in turn inject people over into politics, which is why Indonesian student organizations focus on recruitment and characterization instead of dialogue and discourse, much like a student organization is supposed to do. What are you guys doing? Make no mistake, this is not a republic of ideas, but rather a republic of servitude. Sure, we shouldn't be that naive since we can also make the argument that politics around the world don't reward free thinking as well, like how you would see in America punish you for straying out of the liberal conservative echo chamber and power structures favor loyalty and predictability, but Indonesia's case is structurally much worse. In Indonesia, conformity is enforced through social norms. You're supposed to be polite, you're supposed to be helpful, and you're supposed to be a good family member. So it punishes individualism, which deviates from group dynamics. In Indonesia, being the loudest would get you punished as being kurang ajar. Being smart without the age will make people think you're sok pinter. This creates a sort of soft authoritarianism, not by structure, but by social dynamics. So people in Indonesia tend to self-regulate and self-censor before institutions could act and do something. With this entire arrangement, the political culture in Indonesia favors patronage over ideology. Personal loyalty to a patron or mentor figure is more valuable than ideological originality. And your value is measured not through your thinking or commitment towards an issue, but your usefulness to your patron master. You see, a smart thinker here in Indonesia is considered a liability because they have their own thoughts. Everyone who's a boss wants a yes man. Indonesian political culture is highly transactional, and you tend not to be able to do anything unless your patron says so. And that's why people like Bahlil Lahadalia is able to climb up the ranks spectacularly in less than 10 years because he serves many patrons and is likable enough to ego-starved boomer politicians. That's why you have memes in Indonesia like these. And that political culture is slowly eroding Indonesia to the core because think about it. When you're running an entire government filled with yes men who wait for your next order, you literally have to micromanage everything. And you wouldn't know a decision is bad until it really turns out to be bad. And this is exactly what we're witnessing right now inside our very government. The pinnacle of patron politics is presented to us in full view. And as you can see, Sugiono, the foreign minister, for some apparent reason, endorsing something Tito Carnafian, the interior minister, should say, not because it's his job, but because he wants to make Papa Prabowo proud. And everyone inside the struggle party suddenly stays silent over an issue that Megawati does not like at all. One day, this culture of ours will break the country down, and I will tell you exactly why this is the case. The thing about having an entire government staffed by yes-mens indicate a lot of things, but they primarily mean one thing: brittleness. The entire livelihood of a yes-man hinges on the fact that he will always have the favor and approval of his patron. No matter what the patron says, the yes-man will have to break their backs and bend backwards to get it done, no matter how nonsensical the instructions are. A government of yes-men can't process complexity because complexity requires friction to work. Complexity requires you to say things that are hard to accept and to argue the truth, which compromises a yes-man's position in the government before their patron. This is why the execution of the free meals program feels so inaccurate, because the government does not churn the complexity of how the programs get rolled out and the nuances of different regions it affects. And sometimes, another friction comes from bad news. Loyalty-based systems delay bad news, and this explains why there are a lot of rumors circulating that the Hambalang boys, alongside Cabinet Secretary Teddy Wijaya, have locked down information coming in and out of the president. And without bad news reaching the president obviously has no idea how to assess the problem accurately. This danger of a patronage-driven political system is not corruption alone. Corruption is survivable. What is not survivable is the systematic suppression of independent judgment. When a government is populated by individuals whose primary incentive is loyalty rather than competence, decision-making collapses upward. Ministers stop acting as autonomous decision-makers and merely become political messengers. Bureaucrats stop flagging problems early and learn instead to wait for instructions. Bad news is delayed, softened, or rewarded just to avoid displeasing superiors and to have Prabowo have a stroke. The result is a state that appears orderly in calm times but becomes brittle under pressure. Every issue, no matter how technical, requires personal intervention from the top. Every crisis becomes centralized. Every mistake compounds because no one below feels authorized to say, "This is wrong." This is how governments end up micromanaging everything while understanding nothing. Leaders are forced to make decisions they should never have touched, while strategic blind spots widen below them. Policies are judged not by outcomes, but by whether they align with the preferences of the patron. When failures finally surface, they appear sudden and inexplicable, even though they were structurally inevitable. In such a system, intelligence becomes a liability. Initiative is punished as deviation. And silence is rewarded as discipline. And by the time a policy is known to be wrong, too many people have already attached their loyalty to it for correction to be politically possible. And what's worse is that this is us. What makes this system particularly dangerous is that it does not begin in the palace or the cabinet. It begins much earlier and much lower. Long before someone becomes a minister, a bureaucrat, or a party operator, they are trained to avoid friction. Indonesians hate confrontation, so to minimize friction is the logical extreme. In offices, the safest employee is not the most competent one, but the one who enak diajak kerja, the one who does not question instructions, the one who does not embarrass their superiors in meetings with unfounded questions. Problems are not escalated until they explode because raising them early is seen as being difficult, negative, or not loyal. Even in schools and university, this logic is rehearsed again. Students are rewarded for obedience, not argument. Seniority matters more than reasoning. Asking too many questions is interpreted as arrogance or being an attention whore. Being articulate without age is dismissed as sok pinter. Student organizations become pipelines not for discourse, but for discipline. Teaching people how to read power, not to challenge ideas. By the time these students enter politics of bureaucracy, the habit is already formed, ladies and gentlemen. And even at the most intimate level, family, the pattern repeats. Harmony is prioritized over honesty. Difficult conversations are postponed indefinitely. Elders are not to be questioned even when they are wrong. And speaking plainly is reframed as being kurang ajar. In this environment, learning how to disagree productively is socially punished. When we introduce critical thinking into the household, they tell us not to talk back. And I think families are supposed to be a nucleus to societies. What kids go through in their families affect their perception and their action in the greater society. If families continue to view critical thinking as an act of defiance, then our society will continue to be authoritarian as long as it does so. So when we are surprised that leaders surround themselves with yes men, we should ask an uncomfortable question. Where would they find anything else? Because anything else than that is punished, shunned, and sent away. Anything else than that is not part of the Indonesian society. Our state is not an abstract machine. It is a mirror that scales up everyday behavior. When a society trains its people to survive by pleasing authority, its institutions will inevitably reflect that logic. Ministers become courtiers, bureaucrats become messengers, leaders become bottleneck. This is why blaming individuals misses the entire point of our problem. Replacing one leader with another does not fix a culture that is systematically punishing independent judgment at every level. Indonesia is not immune to this dynamic. No country is. But pretending that this is merely a leadership issue allows the deeper issue to persist untouched. A society that rewards obedience over judgment will inevitably produce institutions that do the same. And when such systems finally break, they do not break because no one said so and warned them. They would break because everyone learned long before they reached power that speaking plainly was too costly, that doing nothing and keeping silent saves your ass. But then you learn it doesn't save anyone else's ass. Leave what you think in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to join the Discord server. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Baseless Indonesian Show.